Hi everyone, my name is Courtney. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing all of the books I read for February, which if you've been watching my reading statistic videos for the past couple years, February has notoriously been an awful reading month for me. I think I'm just worn out always after having done all the January end of the year videos. And so February is always like a month of like rest and relaxation for me. And I'm sorry to say that this month is also following that pattern of past Februarys. I was just feeling really burnt out, one from making my winter reading vlog video, but also just again from all those other videos and just reading in general. So I was like, I'm gonna finish what I'm reading, but I'm just gonna ride the wave of relaxation and just let the burnout kind of take over for a little bit. Because every time I push myself to read when I'm in one of these slumps, it just doesn't end up well. So what did I read this month? Because I didn't read that much, but I did read something. So first off, I have Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This was a part of my winter reading vlog series. This was me finishing up that reading vlog at the beginning of the month. So this book has like those wintry themes, atmosphere, setting, but it is a literary fiction contemporary story about a very small isolated town in Sweden, and this junior hockey team is also supposed to help revitalize the town when they win the finals. But one of the members of the hockey team sexually assaults one of the girls of the city, and it's about that whole event getting out of control and the different reactions to when this news comes out as during the semifinals of this hockey tournament. So it is a very dark story. Obviously, it's going to be triggering for some readers and very difficult to read. And I discuss it a lot more in my winter reading vlog, but overall I would say this was excellently done. It's really well written, very slow, character driven. Fredrik Backman just seems like a very thoughtful and careful writer to me from this book. You are getting all the different perspectives of people viewing this event, but I feel like Backman was very intentional with his perspective and how he utilized it and how close you are to the characters in different moments. And I would say it's worth the read. There is a little bit of slowness in the middle for me personally, but overall I do think it was an enjoyable story. It was a well-written story. And if you want more of my in-depth thoughts and opinions, again, I would point you to my winter reading vlog. And the second and final book that I read in the month of February is going to be The Conductors by Nicole Glover. This is a, I wouldn't say urban fantasy, historical urban fantasy, alternate history, reimagined history, but basically this takes place in our world right during like the Reconstruction era or right after the emancipation of slaves in the Civil War, and it's following our main character Hetty, who lives in Philadelphia now and who has been a conductor on the Underground Railroad with her husband, and now her and her husband Benji are dedicated to helping solve mysteries of the town, especially in their community, that are not really priority or not solved by the police or just other authority in this city. And the kind of twist to the historical aspect of this is that people have magical abilities. Some white people have sorcery abilities, which are kind of frowned upon, and it does have some like connection to slavery. And then Hetty and a lot of the other characters of the story have magical powers that draw from constellations. And so different constellations are like different spells and do different things, but there is also like alchemy or potions. So that is kind of what makes the fantastical element of the story, and that's kind of how they solve these mysteries, is by their magical abilities. And this is a really interesting novel. I'm considering doing a full review on it, maybe on my TikTok, but it's a really interesting novel because you're dropped into this story and this community. You're getting flashbacks to Hetty's life as a slave and her work as a conductor on the Underground Railroad, but by this point in the novel they've already solved a bunch of mysteries and cases, and this novel is kind of like the last case that they do, kind of a storyline, their last big case kind of a thing. So it's just a really interestingly structured novel because you're getting those flashbacks. Hetty already knows everybody in her community, so there's like no new characters to meet. You're just kind of trying to get your footing with these characters in this community, and also trying to learn Hetty's backstory and just like her past and how that connects to everything. And so in a lot of ways that kind of setup being set directly in the action or directly in an ongoing story where you're just kind of getting your footing and learning things that the main character already knows. It works really well in a lot of ways because it keeps the momentum of the story forward, but there were at times when I was like trying to keep characters straight just because Hetty wasn't new to these characters or these situations. But overall, I think it was a really effective method for telling the story. I really liked having a really capable character who knew her community, who knew her world, and is kind of just taking us through it. Hetty is the kind of like cold, reserved main character, and her husband Benji is also like very, I wouldn't say cold, but just like very austere, very logical, very like reserved and polite. And their pairing is really excellent because it is a marriage of convenience. So at the start of the novel, Hetty thinks of Benji as nothing more than like a really good close friend, and slowly is falling in love with him, or realizing that she was in love with him the entire time. And then Benji just gives off "I love my wife, I'm devoted to my wife" energy, and like it is chef kiss perfect. I loved like his dynamic with Hetty. Hetty views him as this very like cold, reserved, polite, like upright standing man, and we get like glimpses of just him being like nobody touches my wife energy, and it's so great. So yeah, them coming to realize that they're in love with each other is just really, really, I wouldn't say it's the best part of the story. There is a lot of really good stuff in this novel, but I really loved that dynamic. I really loved them. But overall, this was just a really fun novel. I love like the twist on the historical stuff. I love the added fantasy element. And again, I loved that relationship dynamic, and I loved Hetty and her community as well, and her magical abilities. There's a lot going for this book, and it actually has a spin-off book as well. I've heard rumors or possibilities of a third book, so maybe this will end up being a longer series. But you could read this as a standalone novel. It very easily introduces and wraps up the story. But I think this would also be like a great TV series or graphic novel series. Like I feel like there's so much potential in this idea, in this world, and these characters are so fun. So overall, this was just a really great read. And yes, like I was sloggy, I was feeling burnt out, but this novel was excellent. 4 out of 5 stars for me, 3.75 out of 5 stars. Really great. And that concludes what I read for the month of February. It was just a low-key month for me. I read 2 books, and I just relaxed the rest of the time and went to work. I would feel a lot less burnt out, I think, if I didn't have to go to work every day, but you know, that's just life problems. So what have I been doing this month? Mostly I have been obsessed with replaying Breath of the Wild for like the 5th time. I'm trying to get a full 100% run before Tears of the Kingdom comes out in May. I have done 100% runs before, but I've never gotten all the Korok seeds, which is like my main goal. I've gotten really close at like 800 Korok seeds. In this playthrough, I really want to get that 900 Korok seed thing and do the entire DLC and the entire regular plot as well. So that's my goal. I'm doing okay, but as far as March, what we have to look forward to, honestly, I'm still feeling that like burnt outness, so I just kind of want to relax at least for the first week before I get back into reading. I don't want to push it. I'm expecting March to be a slower month, but I do have a lot of books that I want to read, so I want to take my time with them. But let me know what you read this month. I would love to know. Thanks for watching, and happy reading.